welcome back to Local Decision, and thank you for joining us. I'm Rusty Ray. We're covering the primary elections for Blaine City Council, and we're joined today by a candidate out of Ward 3. It's Al Goracke. Al, welcome back.
Well, thank you, Rusty. Thanks for having me.
No stranger to North Metro TV, but also to the city of Blaine. You serve in a couple of capacities right now already with the city. Tell us about that.
I do. I've been on the Planning Commission for 14 years. I'm actually the chair of the Planning Commission now. And I also serve on the Charter Commission. I've been on the Charter Commission for the last 12 years here in Blaine.
Can you give us the briefest explanation of the Charter Commission so folks understand what it does?
Well, the Charter Commission is about the literal law of the city of Blaine. Obviously, we have the United States Constitution that we take an oath to defend, but then there are actually, the charter, how the law of the city lays out, and we're to make sure that it gets revised and reviewed every so often.
So let me ask you this, with your experience already serving in the city and your experience in the community, both with your church and with the food shelves that you continue to establish across the region, why now run again for city council?
Well, you know what, I think that there are people that are called to do different things, Rusty. I think, you hear of doctors that were kids that were called to be a doctor or a nurse, or maybe you're called to be a pastor or a priest or an engineer or something like that. And I think there are people that are called to actually serve their community, and I think I'm one of them. The very first time I served in Blaine was in the early 2000s, and I wanted to do something good for the firefighters, and at the time, Station 3 was right down 109th there, the old Station 3 building, and I went in there, I got a whole bunch of cleaning supplies, toilet cleaner, toilet brush. And I went into Station 3 and I told the chief, who was Niall Zickman at the time, I said, Niall, I'm here to clean your bathrooms. And he said, get in there, Pastor Al. And so I went in and I cleaned the bathrooms. And that was really my first foray into service. And I did that several times, but I ultimately became a chaplain for the SBM firefighters and the Blaine Police Department. I did that for about 5 years before I started to get into the Planning Commission and the Charter Commission. But I really do believe that there are people that are called to serve the community. And I've been here for 31 years. And so I know the city, I know the weaknesses, I know the strengths and the opportunities. And I love the city, I love the people here.
Well, what are the strengths of Blaine? What are the strengths of this community?
Well, I always, whenever people ask what the strengths are, I always say the people. And we do have, not saying Blaine's, the people are better than Coon Rapids or Maple Grove, but we do have people that are engaged in the city, okay? And so I think we have people that are truly engaged in the political process. They're engaged in volunteering. Each week at our Blaine location for our food shelf, Hope for the Community, we have about 120 volunteers, all right? And they're from people in the community. They care and they want to help people. So I think, what I love about the city is the people. And I also love the fact that it's for a large city, I believe that we're in the top 10 as far as populations. Right. It's one of the safest cities around. In fact, I just got some crime statistics, and it looks like all the crime went down in Blaine in 2021 versus 2020, except one crime, and that was fraud. Fraud, of course, is big during the COVID-19 era. But other than that, I mean, it's the people, it's the safety, it's that feeling that we're connected.
And so I want to use your word. You said weaknesses. What do you see are opportunities where Blaine can do better, perhaps, or opportunities for growth for the city of Blaine?
Well, long before I came on the scene, or you were here, Rusty, that Blaine made the commitment to do a build-out of the total city. And so while we're at 70,000 people in population right now, when the build-out is complete, it's going to be around 100,000. So even though we'll be a top 10 city, we have these weaknesses that probably is more infrastructure related. I refer everything back to Highway 65, and you probably hear this from every state representative, every candidate here. It really gets back to Highway 65, okay? Highway 65 hasn't had any major changes since The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air with Will Smith was a hit.
Interesting.
You get that? And so
okay.
It's like, here's the deal. And people ask me, because I'm on the Planning Commission and Charter Commission, they say, well, how come we can't get a Whole Foods here, or we can't get a Trader Joe's here? And it's not that the council and the city staff haven't engaged them, but it's they don't want to come here, all right? And the real reason, I mean, if we pull back the curtain on Blaine, it's Highway 65, and it keeps really quality businesses and from coming here, and that's a huge weakness.
Well, and the one, I guess, perhaps the most visible way the city can be involved in that planning and in that implementation is with the intersections with 65, right there by your church, 109th, 65,
Right.
one of the busiest and one of the some problems there, and you probably see that firsthand. You may have to cross through there every day, or you have your folks who are coming to receive assistance at Hope for the Community may have to come through there, or whatever the case may be. That's how the city can be involved, and that's how the city can improve, because the state's got to do a lot of that work
Correct.
along the corridor and have to look for that federal funding, but the city can actually put forth plans. Is that the best way that the city can fix it? Is that those intersections, or is there other dealings that you think need to be going on?
There's more, Rusty,
Okay.
and I think the city started to do a lot of this in the last year or two. I've seen movement in this regard, that while the city is limited because we don't have the money from the county or from the state, the reality is I saw some council members go out to Washington, D.C., and they were lobbying for Blaine. And I want to tell you something. The state of Minnesota, I think, has a $9 billion surplus. Now, on the other side of town, I don't know if they're interviewing them on their cable access program or not, but they're like going, they're going, we got to get that state money, okay? Coon Rapids, Maple Grove, they're saying, we want that money from the state of Minnesota. And it's like, I'm thinking it's Blaine's time. And so, yeah, those intersections are important, but we need to complete 65 because it is a lid on the city's quality of life for its citizens and for the future of Blaine itself.
Well, kind of the old refrain that I kind of picked up on in the last year or so is the stance that it divides Blaine, an old Blaine and a new Blaine. There are two Blaines. Yep. 65 divides them. Is that how you see it with your experience here, and certainly with the people that you come into contact with and the conversations maybe that you have that you have privy to?
I do, and I think that's an opportunity too. Yeah. And 65 is the connection point. It connects the city. We drive through it. It connects the north as well. Mm-hmm. So we're strategic, I believe, for Minneapolis and St. Paul as people go north and as they expand suburban sprawl. But I also believe there are opportunities that lie there to keep us connected, not only east and west, old or new. You ever wondered why, our church that I'm at and the food shelf that we're at is considered maybe old Blaine, right? I live in New Blaine, and so all the things maybe that we've been doing have been focused on the newer parts of town. But I think there are ways that we can keep our community connected. And you ever wonder why they don't do like a splash pad by Johnsville Elementary or out this way?
Well, that'd be great. We can stop by there on the way out of
That's
here.
Exactly right. You and I could just go there.
We almost had a Hy-Vee, but
they backed out, right?
Right.
And I'd like to know the real reason for that too. But you never know.
Yeah.
But here's the deal: we can do better as far as connecting us. And there's things that we can do. We don't need to leave certain sides of Blaine kind of with no attention, and we can do better.
City is paying a lot of attention to plans for plans for redevelopment of the Northtown Mall area. What do you see there as opportunities for that part of the city, and an economic engine that perhaps does need to be reimagined and a way to attract new things to the city? Do you see opportunities there, or do you have any ideas to that regard?
I do. I was on the charrette. They call it a charrette,
right.
Where they brought a whole bunch of community leaders together, and we looked at what could be for Northtown. And I know a lot of people in Blaine go, "Oh, forget Northtown," or whatever. I'm like thinking it is an incredible asset to the city of Blaine, and I think with some really innovative development, we can change that area. My wife and I, when we first got married 37 years ago, we lived in a one-room bedroom apartment in New Brighton. And at the time, there used to be this mall called Apache Plaza, all right?
Okay.
And so it was kind of resembled Northtown in many regards today. But anyway, they redeveloped that whole area, and it's very modern, and it's thriving today. And so I just think that if we can do some great innovation around Northtown with homes, with businesses, with restaurant side plots, we can do a great thing there, and it'll be a great asset to the people of Blaine.
Pretty close election last time you ran.
Yep.
What is different about how you're approaching this, or what is different about the way maybe people are approaching you in your position now as you're trying to run again for the seat? Is there something different? Was it 6 years ago, you said?
Yeah, 6 years ago, I ran, and I lost, I think, by 2 votes.
Pretty close.
And so it was very close.
Yeah.
And you know what? Andy Jarvis went on to win, and I'm so glad. He's a great guy, and actually, he's one of the friends behind me, encouraging me to run this time around. And so, basically, for me, I'm doing plenty. I'm obviously busy in the church. I'm busy at the food shelf, and we're expanding. I told you we have 4 locations now. We're expanding to another 5 in the next 12 months. So I'm plenty busy, and yet I got calls from people inside city government, outside, and said, Al, you have so much experience. You would be a great asset to the city of Blaine to help the mayor and to help the others that are trying to lift Blaine to a new level.
Do you see the opportunities there as the makeup of council changes, whether they're people exiting or people running for other races or people not running again or resigning, a newer mayor still? Do you see those opportunities there and ways that you can plug in that experience to that?
Yes, you know what, obviously I know the mayor, he's a great guy, and I know many of the council members. I know the staff. I know the firefighters. I went on ride-alongs with the police department. So I'm pretty much connected in the city. So as far as a training opportunity time for me, I will hit the ground running. I want to be working alongside the mayor and the council members. I want to be a voice to get that money to fix Highway 65. It's all about 65, Rusty. It really is.
And some people, 65 may be the top of the list, probably 9 out of 10 people you may ask what's going on in Blaine. But a lot will mention that development that you talked about a few minutes ago and building out and things like that. But a lot of people who've lived here for any number of years or months or even days would probably say, we need more restaurants. We need more of those grocery stores that we talked about. With planning and zoning under your belt here for 14 years, what can you say about ways to attract that, but knowing that it follows the development, those restaurants follow the rooftops, and they follow the infrastructure, obviously.
Yes.
But people are looking for that, or they may say, we want a community center that we can have these events at. We know that there were plans for some kind of community center, Lexington and Main Street, but then the people who live by there said, no, we don't want all that traffic.
Yeah.
So there's all this balance. With a planning experience background, do you think that you know ways to work with people and to find ways to make these things happen?
Well, I think the main thing for me is that I'm a communicator. Obviously, I communicate for a living in what I do in my ministry. And so I can talk to people that are millionaires, and I can talk to people who are dollar heirs, you know that? And so I do. And so I have a way of communicating with people. And Billy Graham, the famous evangelist, said, no matter how smart you get, always keep the cookie on the lowest shelf so everyone can get the cookie. And so it's one of the things that I do. I have friends on both sides of the political aisle, and I leverage it.
Where do you see Blaine in 10 years? No matter what happens in the elections, what do you see 10 years from now?
Well, I have a doctorate from Bethel University. It was in organizational systems. And here's what they said. There's 4 types of cultures. And I find this true, whether it's Wall Street, Church Street, Main Street. And basically you have a toxic culture. And I've been to some cities that have a toxic culture. And then the next level is discouraging culture. And then you have an encouraging culture. And then the top of the list is an inspiring culture. And I believe Blaine's probably an encouraging culture. I believe that we will be an inspiring culture once 65 gets fixed. We build out our city, and we make it really a shining example of in the north.
Okay. Al Goracke, that's the time that we have today. We appreciate you coming by.
Thank you so much, and man, I could use your support if you go to my website, goracke4blaine.com.
Thank you very much.